Good afternoon, everybody. So I was on my walk this morning, just minding my own business, walking around the neighborhood, and look what I found at the curb. This is a Stihl 205 chainsaw. I believe this is the predecessor of the MS-250 and perhaps a couple of others. It's not considered a pro grade saw. Think of it as like a prosumer type of saw. It's by no means as bad as, say, like a Home Light or a Poulan Pro or something like that. Definitely several notches above that. But it's not like a top-of-the-line commercial, like use it every day type of steel saw. So I know absolutely nothing about it. This is really the first time I'm looking at it. Give you a little spin around. So it seems to have all the parts here, which is a plus. So I guess first step is we'll see if it works. Well, before we see if it works, let's see if it has compression. One really quick way that I like to see if a saw is any good and has compression, pick it up by the starter rope. Thing falls right down, probably no bueno. And this thing is not falling right down. You can see it's taken a little while. So it's dropping very slowly. That's a good sign. So it has compression. I guess now let's see if it wants to fire. Let me get a little bit of gas. I have some two-stroke mix in a squirt bottle here. This stuff here. It's red because I use the Echo Red Armor two-stroke oil. So let's take the air cleaner cover off here. And I see a very dirty air cleaner. Get you guys in closer. So yeah, pretty nasty and a little loose. Let's squirt a little bit of gas in here and see if it fires. This will tell us if it's worth, wasting any money on and time. I was expecting the compression to be a little bit stronger than what it felt like to me. My arm could be a little off. That's totally possible, but it just felt a little weak to me. Certainly enough to run it, but there may be damage that we haven't seen yet. So let's take this off and let's get the choke on. Choke is on. Let me get this in the ground. We'll give it a couple tugs. All right, here goes nothing. Try not to get in your way. Oh, I heard a stumble. Okay, so it does run. Absolutely zero throttle response, but that's not necessarily a problem yet. May have also noticed the chain was moving even though the saw was at idle. So there may be something wrong with the clutch. Maybe we should dig into there. Actually, before we do that, let me pull the muffler off. Let's just get a good look at the inside to see if there's any damage. Obviously not going to be horrible because you just saw the thing run, but there may be damage that could cause it from running well. So to do that, there's a couple of 8mm bolts here, or nuts rather. I'm surprised they're coming off so easily. This thing looks like it's sitting out in the weather a little bit. One. Two. Let's see what we can see. The reason why I'm taking the muffler off, I want to see the exhaust port. Oh yeah, it looks a little messed up. So I don't know if you guys can see that. Let me get you in a little bit better. So that's the side of our piston right there. So not looking great. Does still have compression though, as you can see. Let's give it a compression test and see what it comes out at. Maybe it's marginal. I think we might put a piston and cylinder on it just for you guys, even if it doesn't really need it. I'm predicting we're gonna have at least, I don't know, what do you guys think it's gonna be? I'm saying at least 120 PSI compression, but been wrong before. Pull the spark plug out. Screw in our compression tester. got a clamp here to keep our throttle open. You want to run this while its throttle is open, not closed. Let me hook up my gauge. Give this thing a bunch of tugs and we'll see where we end up on the gauge. Stand back here so you guys can see. Oh, better than I thought. So the compression gauge reads, let's see, 120, maybe just shy of 150 psi. Not horrible at all. So certainly 150 psi in a saw like this is more than enough for it to run, and probably run reasonably well. But like I said, if you're watching this video, you're probably sick of watching me do carb cleanings, which this saw undoubtedly needs. So we're gonna do something a little bit more invasive. We'll replace that piston and cylinder. I did check the prices online. Not too bad. You get an aftermarket high quality one, or at least what appears to be high quality, for about 45 bucks or so. So not horrible. This is not a cheapy throwaway saw. So I don't have a top handle saw, so probably worth investing a little bit of money into. So those parts are on order, but in the meantime, we can take this saw apart, get it cleaned up, because if you watch this channel at all, you know I hate working on dirty equipment. I'm already dirty. So I think next step, I'm going to take this thing outside, hose it off, maybe throw some parts in the ultrasonic cleaner, and we'll pick it back up for more of the teardown. I lied. Let's take the bar and sprocket off. See what lies under here, because we may have a clutch issue. Does seem to turn free of the motor just fine. So it's not locked up. May have lost a spring or something inside though. All right, I think we'll get it cleaned up. I'm not going to dive any deeper into this while it's this friggin' dirty. Let's try that again. So we have another linkage over here on the choke. So this was just a, oh yeah, that's just the ground for the coil. Guess this can come out this way maybe? Man, it's been a long time since I've done one of these. There we go. Got it out, didn't we? This is a Walbro carb. Let's disconnect our fuel line. Beautiful. Got our adjustment screw covers here that should just pull off. Wow, it's an adjustable carb. So cool. Let's get this thing apart. I'm sure it's going to be a disaster. Let's try that again. So we have another linkage over here on the choke. So this is just a, oh yeah, that's just the ground for the coil. Guess this can come out this way maybe? Man, it's been a long time since I've done one of these. There we go. Got it out, didn't we? This is a Walbro carb. Disconnect our fuel line. Beautiful. Got our adjustment screw covers here that should just pull off. Wow, it's an adjustable carb. So cool. Let's get this thing apart. I'm sure it's going to be a disaster. Okay, this carburetor is a Walbro WT283C. I ordered a rebuild kit for about 10 bucks from Stihl. I believe the OEM carb kit number is K20WAT. I just got a Stihl equivalent. I've had pretty good luck with those. Once it arrives, I will show you guys the part number. Link will be in the description as usual. I did notice when I was glancing at the saw that the fuel supply line to the carb was all cracked. So we'll need to do something about that. It doesn't seem like the type of thing that you can fix with bulk fuel line either. Let's see, got a small screwdriver we can pry with here. Thing's pretty well stuck on there. Let's see if we can get something in that vent hole. Pry up. There we go. Yeah, it's pretty rock hard. So, not terribly surprising. Most of the time this type of thing is necessary. Carb actually does not look that bad though internally, so whoever had it before me was pretty good about putting clean gas in it. So let's throw all this stuff in the ultrasonic cleaner. I'm going to save these pieces here. Man, these look brand new. And now on second thought, this actually doesn't look all that bad. But regardless, we'll do it. It's a part, it's here. And this is the cracking I was referring to on this fuel line. You see when I bend that? She's done. Let's take a peek at our clutch and see if we can see what's going on before we place our next parts order. So let's get this clip off while trying not to launch it across the room. Our needle bearing came apart. That's the problem. I'll show you. There should be a caged needle bearing on the crankshaft right there. And you see those needle bearings are just loose. Let me flip this thing upside down before they go everywhere. So that is what's left of the caged needle bearing on the crankshaft. So we'll have to get a new one of those. Something you got to watch out for with these projects. You know, sometimes what might seem like a really simple fix, and quite often is, ends up being a much bigger ordeal. That's just what you deal with. So let's now take the clutch off the crankshaft. I believe that is a 19 millimeter, and I think it's reverse threaded if I remember correctly. It is. So here is our clutch. And there is the business end of the saw right there. All right, everything's out of the ultrasonic cleaner. Got a lot of parts ordered. I ordered a new one of these fuel lines. Stihl makes one. It's kind of expensive, but I mean, it's hard to get Stihl parts unless you're a dealer. Just in case they leak, I ordered a new fuel cap, a new oil cap. What else did I get? I got a new clutch drum, which comes with this drum and the needle bearing inside that's wrecked. And this thing isn't in the greatest of shape either, if you can see those sprocket teeth. They've been used a little bit. So I figure now we can probably get the motor out, right? So I guess let's remove the spark plug, because we'll need to remove that to lift it out of the case. Looks like there's a bunch of T27 Torx that hold the, oh, it's not even tight. I guess I left it loose before. Also ordered a tune-up kit with an air filter and all that business too. Be careful with this E-clip. I launched mine across the shop and I have no idea where it went. Luckily I had the same size in stock, so just keep that in mind when you're removing it or manipulating it. So it looks like the handlebar is going to have to come off to get the motor out. I think that goes in there. I don't really know for sure, guys. It's been a long time since I've taken one of these apart. Kind of just guessing here. Okay, our recoil assembly should come off now. It does. Still dirty. Yeah, it's still pretty disgusting. We'll get that cleaned up though. So let's see, what else is holding this on? There's probably some fasteners on this side, be my guess. Looks like maybe there's a fastener under here. Let's take a look. Get a screwdriver and we'll pry against it. Sure seems like there might be something hidden under here. Let's check. There is not. Interesting. So I guess it's just a grommet. There's probably a fastener under here, maybe. There is, look at that. So far all these fasteners are the same length, so not paying a whole lot of attention to what came out of where. Looks like we gotta take this apart too. These are obviously going to be shorter, I think. Nope, same length. So I think the handlebar will probably, this part will probably come off now, right? Oh, there might be a fastener under here. Let's take a look. Do indeed have another one. Alright, so what's holding this thing? Oh, we have another one here. Oh, we have another one here. Okay. Set that aside. I don't think there's much holding this thing on at the moment. Definitely no fastener in there. Yeah, it looks like it's just held on by a grommet. Let's remove the muffler. It's going to have to come off again anyway. Might give us a better view. Oh, might have to pry from this side. Is that how it works? Does it help us at all? Is there a fastener on that side? No fastener. Let me work on this a little bit. I think I got it. What helped was to take squirt a little bit of tri-lube in there, just a little bit of lubricant, and just kind of pry it with 2 screwdrivers that seemed to pop it out. Hopefully that'll allow this whole top section to just pop right off. There we go. I think that did it. Yep, it's free. So what's holding us now? Maybe the vent tube? Yep, that's, yeah, it's the vent tube. That one's a tough one to see, too. There's a tube that goes to the crank, from the crankcase over to the back of this piece right here. That's what allows the fuel pump to function, because crankcase vacuum will get transferred over to one of these two holes, sometimes both of them. That hole or that one over there. And that tube is in an inaccessible location, of course. I'm gonna see if I can pry it off from this side without breaking it. Yeah, it's coming off. All right, it's clear. I think the only thing holding us now is the rubber grommet underneath this gasket. So we got to pull these two nuts off here. Pull this gasket off, hoping it doesn't break. Oh, look at that. That's cool. Probably just need to collapse this rubber section here in on itself. Throw a bit of lube on there too, just for good measure. Yeah, just like that. Try not to bust it. Okay, that should do that. Let's get this fuel line out of here. Looks like there's a wire coming in here that we need to disconnect. Maybe our kill wire. Now just have to fight with this wiring grommet here. Pass the wires through. And now top section is free. Got our wires. Here's our bad fuel line that was probably pulling air. Which might be why this thing wasn't running. All right, so let's see. What's holding our engine in at this point? Probably some screws in the bottom, be my guess. Yep, there are a few. I think I'm going to take this thing outside. Maybe not yet. I'll take it outside soon and clean it because it's still pretty gross. Let's get our coil off. Wait, does that need to come off? Maybe it doesn't. Let's get these engine bolts out. Whoa, okay, they're tight. Wow. This one's probably going to be a different size. Yeah, for sure. So these are longer. They have an unthreaded shoulder on there. Looks like there might be 3 of them. actually 4. Let's try this one again. And hopefully the last one is down here. Let's see, is our engine loose now? It is a bit loose. Looks like our coil, well, let's take our flywheel off. It looks like that definitely has to come off. That looks like it's going to be maybe another, no, that's not going to be a 19. That's going to be something smaller. Maybe a 14? Actually, maybe a 13. That it is. Now, works sometimes with these is just striking them with a chisel. Let me go grab one. And when I say chisel, I mean punch. A little indentation in the front of the crank. Let's just give it a good whack. That come off? Nope, not yet. Let's stick a screwdriver behind it, put a little tension on it. Needs 6 hands for this. Why am I seeing movement of the cylinder relative to this flywheel? It doesn't look right. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't think I am, though. Oh, you know what? I bet those 4 bolts that go through the bottom actually hold the crankcase together. Let me put a couple of those back in just to get things secured. And we'll try this again. That did it, folks. Sorry I didn't film it, but put 2 bolts back in the bottom of the crankcase and just did basically what you saw me do a second ago. That pulled the 2, this bottom half and the cylinder together and took up all the play, and that allowed me to whack the crankshaft with the chisel and broke it loose. So now we got to take these bolts out again. Okay, got those 4 bolts out again. Let's see if we can remove our engine assembly. Maybe? What's holding us in? This ground strap isn't helping. Let's undo that. This is the ground for our coil to kill the motor. Definitely don't want to forget that one. That helps quite a bit. slide out this way. I think our coil has to come out a little bit in the way. Nice thing about doing all this, it gives you an opportunity to clean the saw up really well, because you can see how dirty it is, even though I cleaned it pretty well with the garden hose and simple green. All this dirt and grime isn't doing the cooling system any favors. Let's see if it slides forward now. There we go. Shoo-wee, that's still pretty dirty, isn't it? Look at that. Let me take this outside and clean it up again. All right, let's tear this short block down and see how bad it is. All the fasteners should be removed. We can just pull our rotating assembly straight out, like so. You can see some nice vertical scoring on that side of the piston. The rings are not locked up, which is good. This side is a bit worse. Amazed this thing at 150 psi compression, to be honest. Let me clean it up in the ultrasonic cleaner so you guys can see a little bit better. All right, I got all the parts cleaned up. This is what the piston looks like. Those catch a nail, barely. That's not the worst of it. That's probably the worst of it there. That definitely catches a nail. Amazed this thing had almost 150 psi compression, isn't it? I have a feeling that someone's been in here before, and let me tell you why. The sealant that was on the bottom clamshell of the crankcase was gray. It almost looked like RTV. And from what I understand, the factory stuff, or the stuff that Stihl recommends, is this red stuff, this Durco HT. So I think someone's been in here. Another reason why I think that is I believe the factory piston has an arrow on the crown that points, I think, to the PTO side. I don't know. I don't remember. I have to look it up. This one doesn't have an arrow at all. So yeah, I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's factory, maybe it's not. So what I got is I got this piston, cylinder, and wrist pin kit. This is a Nicosil kit. So it's got a special coating that's supposedly very durable. So let's unpackage this. Let's undo this plastic wrap. Let's see what we're dealing with. This is not OEM, this is aftermarket, but supposedly one of the better aftermarket ones. I think it's made by the Duke. Saw salvage. There's our rings. Here's our piston. Here's our piston with the arrow. So the other one doesn't have the arrow, oddly enough. So I'll have to look up and see what direction that arrow is supposed to go, because I'm not sure. This looks pretty nicely made. Give you guys a full view. I don't see any indication of a manufacturer on here, but who knows? Okay, I just looked it up. Sorry, it's been a while since I worked on two-stroke like this, but arrow towards the exhaust. So this arrow here on the piston, you can hopefully see there. It's going to go towards the exhaust port, which is this port here. This is your intake port. So before we do that, let's get our piston rings on. You generally want to gap your rings towards the intake side, but this piston has a little indent, little pins in there. So the rings line up there and there. I think both these rings are the same. Let's take a look. I don't see any marks which would differentiate them, but you will see on the ring end gaps there's a little indentation for that pin. So you just want to make sure you follow that. I'm just going to ease these rings on. They're usually not too bad. All right, so I got that one in there, just kind of walked it down, wasn't too bad. Did get caught in that first ring gap first, but not the end of the world. Just gotta work it down. Trying to shoot the ring across the shop too. There we go. So let's set this piston aside for now. Let's get our old piston off. To do that, we have to remove these little circlips in there. A lot of times they like to shoot across the shop, so just got to use a little bit of caution when you're taking those bad boys out. I'm going to try a screwdriver. Yeah, I can't even see the thing. Tiny. That screwdriver was too big, so I'm pivoting over to a seal pick. Stick it in there. Did they come out? Nope, not yet. There we go. This came out. Got the old piston removed from the connecting rod. Again, I just worked one of those circlips out with a pick. Took the wrist pin out, and the piston slides right off. So we'll set that aside. Got the crank assembly all cleaned up. Got a little bit of light oil in there just to keep it relatively lubricated. Now we'll assemble the piston to the crankshaft, or the new piston to the crankshaft. So again, our arrow is going to point towards the exhaust. So thinking about how the engine came apart, this is our PTO side. This is where the clutch hooks up. This is where the flywheel goes. So our exhaust intake side is going to be towards me. Exhaust side is going to be like that. So this thing is going to slide on just like that. I did off camera put in one of the new piston ring circlips that came with the kit. Not that difficult to put in. You just gotta. They like to fly around the shop. So let's get our new wrist pin that came with the kit. Set that there. Let's get some two-stroke oil and put some oil on this before we put it together. Gonna put a little bit of Echo Red Armor oil on this needle bearing in the connecting rod little end. Doesn't take much. Put our piston in place. Do the same thing with the wrist pin. Just give it a little light coat. Remember, this thing's not going to see any oil or any lubrication immediately after startup unless you do this. All that work you did could be for naught. Okay, new pin is in. Now I got to put that last circlip in. I'll do that off camera. Now is also a really good time to replace your crank seals. Before I do that, I'm just going to squirt a little bit of oil into these ball bearings. Put a little bit of oil on the crank itself. Make sure you make a mess, that's important. It was a little tough to go on there. I might put some tape on this surface here, just to allow the seal to slide on easier because it's getting caught in that groove. Let's try that again. There we go. I'll just take the tape off. Other side I don't think we'll need it, only because that side's tapered. I'll leave links to all this stuff in the description as usual, so don't worry about finding all these pieces. A bit of oil. Let's oil the bearing like we did the other side. Slide this seal on, like so. So now this should be ready for installation into the new cylinder. We'll put a little bit of oil on the piston itself. We'll put a bit of oil on the bore, because again, this is going to start up dry initially, and we don't want that. Before we go installing this, make sure your piston circlips are in the groove fully. They have to be in that groove fully. If they're not, you're going to have a bad day. So just double, triple check those. Got a light coat of oil on that bore. And again, this is our intake side, exhaust side. Let's not put it in backwards. Got our seals, we checked our circlips. Now it's just time to install the thing, and the arrow is pointing towards the exhaust. Sometimes these can be a little finicky depending upon the make and model of the saw. Sometimes these rings just compress themselves. Sometimes you need a tool. Sometimes you need to work it in with like a, what do you call it? Almost like a tongue depressor type of thing, a popsicle stick. Make sure your rings are also lined up. Check those grooves. Check the little rods that are in the grooves to secure the rings or to locate the rings. This does not appear to be one of those saws that has a taper. I could be mistaken. Let me work on this a bit. Got the piston and rod assembly installed in the cylinder. Everything's looking good. I didn't end up needing to use a tongue depressor or anything like that, popsicle stick, whatever you want to call it. Just got everything lined up. It just kind of slid right in. So I was wrong. That cylinder does appear to be tapered, so you don't need any special tools. So now it's time to put on this Durco stuff, Durco HT. There are absolutely no English instructions in here, so we'll see what we can do. It comes with this tool. Oh, I guess this is to feed the tube. But yeah, it says silicone. I guess they don't want any oil on the crankcase, so I used a little bit of brake cleaner and a towel to get all the oil off there that I could. When you put things back together, take note of this clamshell that goes in the bottom. It's not the same on both sides. There's like this little cutout here. This side goes towards the PTO side, so it'll go on like this. It's important that you notice that. You'll see too, I mean, the case doesn't really seem to line up just right without that anyway. Here goes nothing, I guess. Let's apply the Durco. I'm just gonna break the seal. I'm going to apply it here. It does smell pretty horrible. Also going to throw a little bit on the where the seal meets the crankcase, right here. 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 And there. That should do it. Alright, now we'll reassemble our crankcase. Should be that simple. Got the crankcase reassembled in the saw. We'll go ahead and put those bolts down to secure the two halves of the crankcase together. Alright, got those bolts tightened down. I will say they were very, very difficult to screw in. I don't know if like the plating from the cylinder somehow got on the threads, or if the threads were just uncut. I'm not sure what the deal is, but they were pretty tough to put back in. I had to use an actual 1/4-inch ratchet. I couldn't use the T-handle. So I'm going to let the Durco cure up for a couple hours and I'll pick it up then. You know what, I lied, there is stuff we can do. I'm going to replace this fuel line. This is the part number. It's a Sten 610184. Again, links in the description. Probably get the OEM one as well. I didn't bother with that. Probably doesn't matter a great deal. But that was real tough, wasn't it? Jeez. Will this come out through here? No, it will not. Just going to cut it. I'm not saving it. There we go. Do have a new fuel filter too. Came in a Sten's maintenance kit that I also bought. Let's see here. This kit is a 605108. It comes with a new fuel filter. It comes with an air filter, spark plug. I think that's it. So there's our fuel filter. It's interesting how it curls like that, isn't it? Okay, whatever. Alright, I'm just going to coat the outside of this a little bit of 2-stroke oil just to aid installation. Doesn't look like it's going to be too bad anyway. Just a little bit of oil on this grommet here. Let's go ahead and get our filter installed. There we go. Let's grab our line and install the filter. Kind of unfortunate it doesn't fit through this hole right here. It made things a little bit easier. That'll do it. And I'm now realizing I forgot to put this silly little clip on. Man, that's frustrating. This goes on the crankshaft by where the seal sits. I was able to get it back on without doing anything drastic. I was able to just sneak it in here and I got it on with a pair of needle nose pliers and just popped it on with it the rest of the way with a screwdriver. So, bit of a relief there. Dodged a bullet. We'll use our business card rule to set our coil gap. I may have messed up again. Forgot to put this thing on. Man, maybe you shouldn't be watching this video. I think I might be able to recover from this. But we have to put this thing on first. Make sure you check this thing really carefully for cracks and splits. This boot looks like it's in good shape. It's an OEM part, but just make sure yours is in good shape too before you reinstall it. Let's see if we can sneak this thing on here. It'd be amazing if we could. Able to sneak it on there. Another line you want to check really carefully is this impulse line. If this thing is cracked, you won't get a pulsing action to the carburetor and you won't have any fuel pumping action. This one's a little stiff. It doesn't seem to be cracked or frayed anywhere, but I do have another one that came in a kit. As I was doing this, I figured if any parts broke, any rubber pieces need to be replaced, like this, a new rubber boot came in this kit for like 20 bucks with a carburetor. I'm not going to use the carburetor because it's, you know, probably an aftermarket cheapo, but these lines are probably fine. So this one's a little stiff and hard. This one's nice and pliable and soft. So we'll use this new one. And this is the video of out of order operations, because I probably should have done this before I put this plastic cover on, but I'm pretty sure we can sneak this thing on there with it in place. Maybe after I'm done with this, I'll check the workbench to make sure I didn't leave any other parts out. And you know what? I think I'm just going to take this thing off. It wasn't that difficult. Alright, I was able to sneak it on without too much difficulty, so I'm going to give the workbench a look-see just to make sure I didn't forget any other parts that need to be installed now before I do anything else wrong here. All the other parts I see here seem to have to do with the handle assembly, a couple of carb parts. Don't really see anything major, so I think we're okay. I figure it's probably time to start getting this case back on. Got to get our wires through here. Don't forget that. Snake the fuel line through. And you got this grommet on the other side here too. As you're doing all this stuff, you have to sneak in there and hook up that impulse line to the little nipple on the back of this thing. You also have to get this rubber boot that goes to the carb in the hole too. And that's what you're aiming for. This thing should come out and line up right here. Got our impulse line hooked, I got our fuel line sticking out, so I think we're in good shape here. We do have to hook up our kill switch. And this has to get hooked up somewhere down here too. I gotta figure that out. Fun part's gonna be this grommet to lock everything in. If you recall, this one was a lot of fun to get out. Maybe it'll be more cooperative now. We'll see. Oh, maybe I just got it. Okay, that wasn't so bad. I was was expecting much more of a fight. All right, what other pieces are we forgetting? The airbox cover, yeah, not much. Not much left on the bench. Got our handle. Which I believe goes on something like that. It's coming together, folks. Took some time off camera and just put all the fasteners and odds and ends back together. Installation is the reverse removal. It's pretty straightforward. So got everything back together except the clutch. I think now we're going to put the carb back on. So before we do that, we got to put a carb kit in it. I'm pretty sure that this is the kit. Again, link in the description. Not quite the same, but the passageways are the same. So the fuel pump is just clear plastic on this one. I found a gasket that matched the old one. Got to be careful with these. Sometimes they can be a little tricky. You got to match up every passage. And of course, you're assuming the person that worked on this before you actually had the right carb kit in it. But you can see that these, if I take this clear plastic, it's going to be really hard to see just because of the nature of the beast here. But you can see how these little flappers here block off passageways. So, and the diaphragm on the other side is pretty easy. There aren't too many variations of this one, at least in my experience. So the one we had was like this. So we'll find our matching gasket, like so. Wait, nope, got that wrong. Hang on. Gasket goes on first, then our metering diaphragm with the disc facing down, and then our cover. And just put on the 4 screws. Okay, carb is all back together. We got this grommet looking thing on here. Hook our fuel line back up. And just slide the carb back in place. We do have linkages we got to deal with too. But we'll deal with those in just a moment. Now we got to hook our throttle linkage back up. Praying that I have all this right, otherwise I'll look like a blithering idiot. Oops, that came off. I think this thing snapped in place, right? Whoops. It's a little tricky. It's certainly a little difficult to see too. I think this just snaps back in place here, like that. Cool. Now the choke linkage. Trying to remember how this goes. That's a throttle lock. Let's see, does this go in here? No. Looks like down is full choke. So does this like go in here somehow? Remove that kill switch temporarily. Maybe it goes like that. And this wire just sneaks back in there like so. Full choke. Oh, partial choke. That's just run, I guess. Yeah, now we got to bolt the thing in place. Put our airbox cover back on. And we'll put our two 8mm nuts and secure it. Cool. Now let's get our new air cleaner, part of the Stihl's maintenance kit. That snaps on like so, I think. Yeah, there we go. All right, I think this end of the saw is probably done. Hopefully I didn't mess anything up. Let's turn our attention to the business end. So I have a new sprocket. Should be as close to a match as the old one as possible. So they're both 7 teeth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, yep. Comes with a new needle bearing, which is what nuked this one. Got our clutch assembly here. But first, let's see, what goes on first? Trying to remember, I think this doodad goes on first. Right, didn't this go on? Yeah, there we go. That thing goes on first. I did buy a new one of these. I was ordering from Stihl's anyway, and it was dirt cheap, so I figured, why not? I think it was like $2 or $3. Maybe we'll throw a little bit of oil on there, just for good measure. There we go. Give it a fighting chance, right? You know what, that new one binds. I'm just going to reinstall the old one. Maybe that's one of those aftermarket parts that just doesn't work so hot. Throw a bit of oil in the old one too. There we go. Now I believe this guy goes on. Drive that on with an impact. Remember, it is reverse threaded, so lefty tighty. Need a deep socket. We'll take our new needle bearing. Throw a bit of oil on there too. Put our new clutch drum on there. Just like that. Now we got to get our E-clip on there. There we go. Last piece that comes in the maintenance kit is the spark plug, so we'll install that now. Probably should have done that before we put the air cleaner on. Put our plug on. I think we're probably ready to give this thing a tug and see what happens. A little gas in there, a little bar and chain lube. What do you think? Before I put fuel in here, I'm going to put a little bit of extra oil in the fuel tank because the fuel that I have is 50 to 1. And since we have a new piston and cylinder, I want to give them a fighting chance at a nice break-in. So I'm going to dump in a little bit of extra oil. I'm not going to go nuts. That should be enough. Let's throw some fuel in here. I wouldn't be surprised if it leaks because these fuel caps do have a tendency to do that. This is ethanol-free, recreational 90 fuel. That should be enough to tell the tale if it's going to work. Don't see any obvious fuel leaks yet. Got to put the cap on though. See if that changes things. I think it'll be fine, but we'll see. No obvious fuel leaks. Cool. Let's pull a bit of bar and let's shake it up. We'll throw a little bar and chain lube in there too. Make sure the oiler works. There we go. Should be locked and loaded. All right, let's give it a couple of tugs and see what happens. It may take a while to start, only because there's no fuel on the line, so the carb has to pump some up. So let's actually, let me get you guys situated a different way so you don't see my backside. Hopefully you can see a little bit better there. I do have my hearing protection on, so don't worry about that. Nice. Let's put the bar on. All right, guys, I think that's a wrap. So we got this thing picked up off the street for $0. Really, all it absolutely needed was a fuel line and what else? It needed something else, didn't it? Man, I'm drawing a blank. Anyway, oh yeah, needed a fuel line and a needle bearing for the clutch drum. But we saw some scoring on the piston as shown here. Even though we were getting 150 PSI compression, decided to replace the jug and piston rings wrist pin. So pulled the saw apart, got it all back together. You can see she runs like a top. The previous owner must have mucked with the carb adjusting screw because the thing would not idle at all. It was turned all the way out. The mixture was all the way rich. So dialed it in about a turn and a half. Then started up, it idled, and I just slowly tightened it until it started to accelerate. Then I backed it off a little bit. Now it's idles just fine. Anyway, hopefully if you have a Stihl 025 or MS250, you found this video helpful. If you did, subscribe. Stay safe. Thanks for watching, everybody. Again, all the parts will be in the description. Thanks a lot.